My next guest, we will refer to him as Stevie Iraq. We'll probably get into why we call him Iraq. Steve, can you introduce yourself?
I don't. I've known Dave for it's been close to 20 years plus,
Somewhere around 20 years.
and I will be one of the people that calls Angry Dave angry. I've seen some Angry Dave episodes in those 20 years.
Steve and I basically met from baseball. We have some mutual friends. Stevie Bananas introduced me to Steve when they were playing baseball together. And then we've sort of been friends ever since. We helped run baseball teams together. We helped run baseball leagues together and have become pretty close friends over the years. Is
And
that accurate?
it's accurate. And I started playing ball with Stevie Banana's dad,
Yeah.
Bananas Senior, I guess you could call him.
Yeah.
And
He is a senior banana. Yeah.
all of a sudden, these two young high school kids started, or not actually a little bit older than that, but
Yeah.
started coming to our practices. We were playing in a men's league, and all of a sudden, Bananas and this hairy little Ewok start showing up for practice,
Yeah.
and kind of went from there.
Right. Steve, so let's start from the beginning with you. You are how old?
I am 58 years old.
Where were you born?
I was born at Rolling Hill Hospital in Elkins Park, right outside of Philadelphia. Um,
And did you grow up in Elkins Park?
no, I grew up in Northeast Philly, and little row home, typical Northeast Philly, lower middle class. Went to Catholic school, St. Bernard's, and
Yeah.
then Father Judge High School.
And you have a brother and a sister?
Yeah, older brother, 3 years older, and a younger sister, about 5 years younger.
Tell me what it was like growing up in Northeast Philly in the 1930s, like you did.
Bastard.
Oh, not 1930s, 1970s, I guess. Yeah.
A lot different than your background. I've heard you talk about your background, and
Yeah.
it had its moments, but I was very blessed that I had a father and a mother. I mean, it makes you my comparison is my house was Leave It to Beaver compared to you guys. My dad was working and my mom was staying at home
Yeah.
until I was pretty much mostly through grade school. Tough neighborhood at times. I got into my fair share of fights.
Yeah.
Didn't win as many as you did. Usually ended up on the losing end. But the neighborhood was one of those neighborhoods where everyone was looking out for each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't have one set of parents. I had a whole bunch.
Like Elaine talked about the parents being out on the step and talking, and
Oh yeah,
a big part of life growing up in Northeast Philly.
absolutely. I used to be able to walk home from my friend's house, like 10 blocks away, and I would be able to follow the Phillies game because everyone would be sitting out on their porch or on the patio and listening to the game. So I would hear Harry Callis call the game as I was walking 10 blocks home. I didn't miss a thing.
Yeah.
And they looked out for each other. So if I was doing something wrong, I'd hear, Steven, and I never knew who it was yelling from a window.
Right.
But I could never get away with that around my neighborhood.
How was school like in the early years, say grade school, middle school?
Went to a Catholic grade school, so it was very regimented. So had the nuns teaching you, and funny story about my first grade. So I was really good at math. I was helping my brother with his math. I knew math before I even went to school, but I didn't want to take the test because it was too nice of a day. So they put me in like remedial math. I'm sitting there, and the nun told us to do something, and left the room, and I'd finished it. I put my head down, went to sleep. I got woken up by a smack across the back of my head, and I didn't know what it was for. So I said, "But sister," and she smacked me across my face.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, "But I'm done." She's like, "You didn't do your son." I'm done, and I ended up throwing the book at her, but she wouldn't let me talk.
Wow.
I went home with a hand imprint on my face, and my mother was at the school the next day and said, "What the heck is this?" And
Yeah.
I was out of remedial math after that.
Yeah. So when I first started going to camp, right, I came from Catholic school mid 80s, right? So or early to mid 80s. And they thought that I wouldn't be ready for their regimented math, I guess. I don't know. So I wound up being in basically the class for the first 2 years with reading and math for like all the kids that spoke English as a second language. So
Yeah.
it was Mr. Liberti that taught the class, and he called my parents in because he thought I was going blind because I would always squint when I was in the back of the room. But really, it was just because I was falling asleep the
Okay.
whole
Yeah.
time.
Same.
Yeah, that's
So
funny.
Sister Joanelle, I'll never forget it. And I mean, the math at that point would circle the thing with three. My mom's like this kid knows his times tables. Let's stop.
And
So
how would you describe like your neighborhood and your friends around that time?
sports oriented. I had a guy that lived across the street from me, born the day after me. Two doors down was a guy who his birthday was 2 weeks after us. We were all the same age, a couple others in the same neighborhood, but we always played every sport imaginable. We would play street hockey, and then we go to basketball, baseball, whatever it was. Played street football. I lived down the street from Al Domenico, who used to be the trainer for the 76ers.
Yeah,
So I met all the 76ers at the time, and Dr. J came out and steady quarterbacked a street football game for us.
that's cool.
And I caught a touchdown pass, and it was my ball. And I held on to that ball. We never used that ball again. It was sitting in my room for the longest time. I didn't wash my hands for a week. Dr. J threw me a touchdown pass.
That's
So
amazing.
that was pretty cool.
How about your relationship with your siblings, with your sister and your brother?
You know, family, you can't choose your family. I get along with them okay.
Yeah,
We have our differences,
yeah,
but I love them. They're my family.
yeah,
My brother moved away. He's in Rochester, upstate New York.
yeah,
My sister's in Cherry Hill.
yeah,
I love my nieces.
yeah.
My sister has two adopted nieces, and they're just amazing. I love them to death. They're about as opposite as you could be. One, and we're Polish by background.
Yeah,
So she is Hispanic. She was adopted from Arizona, and she has the tight curly black hair.
like me. Yeah,
Yep, and darker than you.
yeah,
A part Native American Indian, part Hispanic, and it's great when she tells everyone she's Polish.
that's amazing. Yeah,
And her sister is about as white as a cloud,
wow.
and the other one's dark, and they're inseparable.
Yeah,
It's
it's awesome.
what it shows me is you can choose family too,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I love them. I throw myself in front of a truck for them.
How about growing up with brother and sister? Were you guys close growing up?
We lived in a small row home.
Yeah,
My brother and I shared a room
right.
until until my brother went to college.
Yeah,
So we fought, just like any siblings did, but he was always bigger, 3 years older, went to
yeah,
the military
yeah.
for a while. And I do remember one fight where I cold cocked him. And I have a slow motion memory of my mind. I'm sure it wasn't quite this way, but I threw my best pitch and hit him right across the jaw. And all he did was turn his head. And he looked back at me and he picked me up off the ground and he said, "Don't ever start a fight you can't finish."
How old were you in that?
Oh gosh, I was probably mid-teens.
15. Yeah. So how were you as like a middle schooler? Describe yourself for everybody.
I was the kid that knew all the answers that everybody didn't like, except when we were outside and doing other stuff, playing sports. But I rescued a lot of people who didn't know the answers because I'd give them the answers.
Yeah,
Um, I was the smartass both ways. I knew the answers, and I was a little bit sarcastic. I mean, that's hard to believe.
yeah. You didn't have trouble telling people you know.
Uh, didn't have what?
Trouble telling people that you were right. You didn't have trouble.
Oh no, I did that.
No, I never seen that from you
Yeah, I
before.
know. It's odd, and you don't share that trait at all. It's funny because I was listening to Stevie Bananas, a little bit of his podcast, not all of it. I didn't want to listen to all of it
Yeah,
before I came on. He said something to you that I'm sure he would say about me is that he thinks that we're smarter or that we know it all,
yeah,
and that's not really it. It's just that when you think you're right, I mean, I have courage in my conviction, firm in my convictions and what I believe, but more importantly, when someone gets something wrong,
yeah.
um, yeah, I don't handle that very well.
So let's talk about moving into high school. How were you then? What was going on at that point?
One of the most traumatic things that happened to me was when I started high school. So I played a lot of sports. I was much better then than than the version of me that you saw, and I had a very bad injury. And the doctor told me we're not sure you're going to walk right again.
Oh wow.
Um, so I was 14 years old,
Yeah,
and I broke the growth plate in my ankle, and I hadn't been done growing.
right.
So the danger was that my legs would grow, and my one leg is a little bit longer than the other. But I was in a cast for 5 months,
Wow.
and I was on crutches for almost a year.
How'd you break it? With playing football?
Baseball.
Oh wow.
So I was trying out for the football team as a freshman in September of my freshman year,
Yeah,
and I was going to play baseball. Very key weekend and for practice. But I had given my dad my word that I would go on this scout camping trip. I was a Boy Scout.
right.
I didn't want to go because I was trying to get on the team. It was late August, I think.
Yeah,
And my dad's like, "Well, you're going to have to decide what your word means." You know how he was.
right.
And so I went on the camping trip and I was playing baseball. And being the jerk that I was playing shortstop. I threw a guy out. He started arguing the call. And I said, sit down. You're out. Sit your ass down.
Yeah.
And he was their shortstop. We got into it a little bit. So a couple innings later, I hit a ball into the right field gap, and I'm rounding second, and I'm trying to pick up my coach. I'm not looking. I'm looking for the third base coach,
Yeah.
and he basically clotheslined me.
Oh, wow.
He just took his hand, went right across my chest. Not. I was running full speed,
Yeah.
and I fell right on my ankle and shattered it. Just awful. It was shaking. It was bad.
Did somebody rip that kid's nose off or
No one ever heard from that kid again. Um,
good?
but and I went to an orthopedic specialist, a sports specialist, and he said, that's like one of the worst X-rays I've ever seen. I'm like, well,
Wow.
thank you. I'm number one. Good job. Um,
I'm the best at something.
yeah. And that day, that day that I had to have it set, so they wrap it in a cast. I'd never been hurt or injured a day in my life, right? I'm
Right.
14 years old. I have a cast from my toes all the way up to my hip. And they cast it up, and they tell me to go get an X-ray, which was in another building.
Yeah.
So I walk on crutches with like a 30-pound cast on me. So I come back, and the doctor says it didn't match. They cut it off, they pop everything out, they set it again 4 times. I got it set 4 times. It's one of the few times I ever saw the tears in my father's eyes. So he was holding me down. Nothing for pain.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, we think we got it. Come back 2 weeks later. Said, look, you got two options. We actually got three options. One, you're going to go with traction for like months.
Yeah.
Remember, this is, like you said, the 1930s.
Now, what is it? Like in the early 80s?
This is 78.
78. Okay.
So here's your options. Traction's one. We can break it all the way because it was only broken halfway.
Okay.
And then your legs would be different lengths. Or we could break it all the way and break your other leg so that your legs are the same length. And they gave me charts about how tall I was, how tall I would expect it to be, and my arms would be. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm 14 years old.
Yeah. Right.
And they said, or we can try and like put it all together with screws.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, you're going to have to choose through options A, B, and C. So I come back, get the surgery.
Yeah.
A lot of complications. Put all the hardware in, stitch it all up, and they think I did a good job. And then I have another surgery when they took everything out.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit shorter than the other leg, which has led to knee problems and me being really slow.
Yeah.
Like the famous line is, Steve, how come the bases are only 90 feet apart and you got thrown out by 100 feet?
Yeah. Was that a Tom Coletti?
No, that was a Joe Ferraro.
That was
Oops,
funny.
we just used last names.
That's
Sorry.
right. That's right. We're not saying anything bad. How about the rest of high school? How did it go after that? Did you get a chance to play football and baseball? Or
No,
no?
I did not. I was on crutches that whole year. I missed my first days of high school were actually in February.
Wow.
So I didn't start in September. I
Yeah.
started in February, walked in on finals for the second semester. The biggest thing that was traumatic for me was I had all these friends that I played sports with.
Yeah.
None of them came by.
Oh wow.
None of them came by for my homework or see how I was doing. I was part of the asshole jock mentality, a bunch of friends that thought they were better than everybody else. And I realized really quick that that was not the way to go.
Yeah. So talk about the rest of high school. You had friends. How was it? Miserable? Okay.
Started community service corps, did a lot of stuff for needy kids and adults, and really turned my attention that way.
Yeah.
Did the debate group and ended up going to different trips for that and focused completely different. I just changed went to more academics.
Yeah.
Had a lot of friends in my neighborhood, and then it was the worst thing that happened to me. It was the best thing that happened. Changed who I was.
Yeah. Any stories about you being involved in stabbings or anything like that?
No, I miss the stories of Motel Mike and people getting stabbed and you're getting stabbed. No, fights. I did get into a fight once where I was fighting one guy and another kid went up onto the roof of a car and then jumped on me.
Yeah.
And I ended up at the bottom. We were playing hockey. It was a hockey fight that it started as a hockey fight, and then my wise ass mouth
Yeah.
made it more. And the cops showed up. We went into these ladies' bushes, so she called the cops.
Yeah.
And I'm on the bottom, bleeding. And the cop rightfully sees the guy at the bottom saying, well, you must have started this. He's like, what are you doing? I said, we're just playing hockey. And everybody picked up their sticks and we started playing again.
How were you as a son during that high school era? What would your parents have said about you?
Well, my mom had the same kind of assessment. Like, I think she always thought I was a know-it-all. But again, it's more like, by the way, my mom is like one of the smartest street smart people I know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I was a pain in the ass at times. But I never got into trouble.
Right.
Had good grades, so I
Yeah.
got away with everything.
Yeah.
I was never in any trouble at all. I went to school all the time. I didn't drink at all. I made up for it in college,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in high school, I never drank, never did anything like that at all.
So let's talk about that. You did really well in high school. Where'd you go to college?
Well, sports is a recurring theme here. I picked my college because of the 1979 Final Four. I don't know if you remember that. Everyone remembers Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the Final Four, but one of the other teams was Penn,
Yep.
and I loved their team. I was a young kid. I didn't even know what the heck that was. I didn't know anything about Ivy League. I said to my dad, I want to go to that school. It
Yeah.
was based on the basketball team, dude, and my dad never let me forget it.
Right.
So that's where I went up. I went to Penn for undergrad,
And what you major in undergrad?
political science, and minor in psychology and history.
Got it. So how was college?
Oh, it's a blast. Oh man, it was great. We had such a good time. It's a great school. I will never donate a dime to them. The administration is not the best, but joined a fraternity, and I was a DJ. And the best thing about being a DJ was you had 40, 50 close personal friends who always wanted to know where you were DJing that night. We always got them in for free. So every Friday and Saturday night, basically, we would have a party, free beer, get paid, and 40 of our close personal friends would show up.
That's
So it was
awesome.
a blast.
Any crazy DJ or like club stories?
Well, everyone took care of us, and all the girls liked you because if you went up to them and they went up to you and asked for your song and you could play it, I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
No crazy stories that way. Did get into one fight. I was an idiot because someone pushed my little brother into fraternity,
Yeah.
and I tracked him down first,
Yeah.
fight him, and then my little brother comes up to me and goes, I could handle myself. I'm like, well, why don't you tell me that a little sooner? Well, before I get my ass kicked, why don't you jump in there, bud?
That's funny. Any hazing stories that you want to divulge here?
Nothing I can say on the air. No, it was some, but it wasn't that bad. We were in a fraternity that didn't really do a lot of that.
Yeah.
It was more fun stuff, like made our pledges go on. We went on like a hunt, a treasure hunt or whatever,
Yeah.
and had to get all kinds of things. And one of the things on there was bring a policeman's badge.
Oh boy.
So I brought a policeman.
The whole
The whole
cop.
cop,
Yeah.
yeah. And the older brothers were like ready to kill me. I'm like, dude, this is a fraternity prank. Do you mind? The cop is really cool. He's like, sure. So I brought the cop.
Yeah.
Got that checked off the list. So I brought the policeman's badge.
Any regrets about college at all?
No real regrets. I do regret one story that I've told many times, and my fraternity repeated afterwards. But one of the traditions was the pledges from the previous year had to get a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a car except for this little Chevette, and you couldn't buy it. You had to go steal it. So we went down to Penn's baseball field,
Yeah.
and there's all these huge trees down there, and
Yeah.
they're all drunk. We have no rope, no plan. We have an axe. That's it. And we chopped down this. Well, first of all, the guys were drunker than me, and you know how that is. I can hold my liquor. I'm not as usually as drunk as the people around me.
Right.
So we get there, and the one guy's like chopping it. I'm like, dude, that's like a 60-foot tray. We're not gonna. Now we had a big stairwell with a couple floors, a couple
Yeah.
stories high.
Not 60 feet though.
No, no. So we pick a tree, and
Yeah.
we chop it down, and then like it falls down almost onto the Schuylkill Expressway, and we get it on the car. Can't drive. It's covering everything. We have no rope. I'm driving. We got one arm out the window. Everyone's got one arm out the window trying to hold it on. It's touching the ground in front of the car. It's touching the ground behind the car, and we're just moving. We're like a freaking driving tree, a bush.
Yeah.
We get to right near the house, and a cop stops us,
Yeah.
and all of us decided, I guess, at the same time to ignore him. So he starts asking us questions like, "Where'd you get the tree?" Nobody's responding. We're just like, "Hey, push it over here, push it over there." And finally, the cop he literally said, "This isn't worth it," and just drove off.
Oh,
And we got the tree, and we're passing we were right across the street from the faculty house, the faculty club, and one of the people out comes walking in and goes, I have a tree just like that. And I looked him square in the eye and I said, oh no, maybe it's yours. And for the next half block, you could see him walking away and looking back like, is it? I don't know. So we took us forever to get in, but the problem was it was a $10,000 erosion tree,
Oh God.
and it was in the paper the next day. We never got caught, and we stuck it in the big broken button at Penn's out in front of Penn's library. There's a picture of it in the Inquirer of this tree.
Yeah.
Flash forward like 4 or 5 years, the pledge class decides to do it again because this story is now immortal,
Right.
but they get caught.
Yeah, and they had to pay it back.
And we got thrown off campus.
Oh boy.
And one of the conditions about coming back on campus was if a grad student or graduate would move in with them for a year. And so I did. How ironic is that? I was the one that stole the other one, and I went back and got my house back on campus about 4 or 5 years later.
That's amazing. And you graduated Penn. You go to Penn Law School.
No, I went to Villanova Law School. Big five all the way, man.
So how was that? How was law school? Did you go right? You go right into law school?
Yeah, went right into law school from Penn, and everyone else was driving up in their BMWs, and I was driving up in. No, I'm not kidding you, a Pinto.
Yeah.
I was driving a $750 Pinto.
Yeah. Just to take a step back to Penn. Did you hang out with or know anybody that like a Donald Trump?
No,
No.
no. Although the first fraternity I was going to join was one of those uppity ones because one of the guys in my high school went there. I was like, "Hey, you want to join this?" And then right before I signed my bid, he said, "Don't join. Just trust me." And like 2 weeks later, they all got busted for running drugs.
Oh, really?
And there were a lot of when their Butler came out,
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm not joining this."
Yeah. 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 So all right. So let's talk about law school. How was law school?
Law school was good. I commuted to save money for
Yeah.
law school. I have some friends that I keep in contact a little bit, but I'm more of my college friends.
Yeah.
Law school was something I kind of went through.
Right.
It wasn't fun. It wasn't, it was just something I had to do.
Right.
And then when I was graduating, I decided like late because of a job I had, a long story with that, I was not going to be a lawyer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I clerked for a large firm,
Yeah.
saw all the bullshit,
Yeah.
and all the stuff that I had to do. I'm like, I'm not doing this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And almost didn't even finish my third year.
Oh, wow.
And then I eventually did, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
And then I went to a small firm, and then I ended up where I am now, which is 33 years, dude.
33 years in the same place.
Yes,
Quasi-governmental organization.
yes, we'll call it that.
Yeah. Talk to me about your career. Just what do you like most about being a lawyer?
I like the strategy. I like taking apart a case and trying to figure out the best argument for my client to win. The rules of evidence and everything else, trying to get things in that you need to get in. It's the easiest thing in the world is to tell someone else to try cases. And I'm a manager now. I run the department.
Yeah.
But I really loved um, making oral arguments to appellate courts. I
Yeah.
still do that occasionally,
Yeah.
but I've done about, I don't know, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And that's what I love the most.
Is it the intellectual pursuit? Is that what
Yes.
it is?
Yes. And
Uh,
it's picking apart very academic arguments. Probably is one of the best accomplishments is I actually changed the law twice. I had one case overturned old precedent, and then created a new law, and then that eventually got overturned, and that pissed me off. But
well, PA Supreme Court, though, right?
Commonwealth Court,
Commonwealth Court. Yes.
yeah,
Talk to me about what your least favorite thing about practicing law is.
lawyers
Ah,
trying to deal with lawyers. I mean,
yeah.
I always when I'm at a party, I'll always say, meeting a new person, I'm a lawyer, but I'm a nice guy anyway.
Yeah.
There's a reason why lawyers have bad reputations. They don't
Yeah.
return phone calls. They can be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. The bullshit, the people that are full of shit is what drove me nuts more than anything. Is, we're fighting over money. Just tell me, just tell me where you're at. I know we're going to have to negotiate and we have to lie a little bit, whatever, or, posture a little bit, but don't tell me about how fucking great your case is. I don't give a fuck. Tell me what the money is and let's move on, please.
I could not agree more. It's a very cynical business when you think about it. We're trying to put a monetary value
Right.
on someone's pain and suffering, and
Right.
there's not much more that's cynical than that.
No, it's not. There really isn't. And especially when you're talking about people that we're valuing them on how much money they can make, right? So, or, in the workers' comp sense, what I'm more familiar with than anything is, every case's value is based on how much you make a week. So if you fall off a roof and, or your boss throws you off a roof, your case is worth less if you make less. It just is.
That's exactly right.
And that's true in all parts of the law to some degree, right? So, because if you can't earn money, then you're just worth less in the eyes of the court, and that's as cynical as you can get.
Exactly. Or you evaluate a case in terms of how much are your medical bills, how long did you treat,
Yeah,
and things like that. It's a cynical thing.
yeah, right. So the people that are actually hard workers that want to go back to work
Are penalized.
are penalized. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a true story.
Yep.
So talk about you're in your early to mid 20s, you're a law school graduate, you're set up with your career, really, you're been in one spot for almost your whole career. What's your life like moving up and through your 20s?
Well, it's interesting because when I started where I am, I was a single dude living in the fraternity house that I had been in college. And then as the years go along in my 20s, I then have a son. Then the whole ball game is completely different. So had a house, had a baby, was married, and your whole life gets turned upside down when you have a child.
Yeah. When did you get married? How old were you?
I was 20, I want to say 29, I believe,
And when was your son Jonathan? When was he born?
1995. So
Okay.
he's now 28 years old. He turned 28 in January.
Wow. Let's talk about that. Talk about Jonathan raising him.
Dude, that is like, um, everyone asks what you want to be known for, or what's your greatest accomplishment, and I got to say that that's probably mine.
Yeah.
Jonathan has Asperger's, and if for those of you who don't know, it's on the autism spectrum, and I don't know if they even actually call it Asperger's anymore. I think it's been taken off the DSM by medical professionals. But in any event, I owe a great deal of debt to the person that was watching him when he was 4 years old and alerted us to the problem. He
Yeah.
was playing around people rather than with, and it's a tough thing. He started going to the doctor, I guess, in second grade,
Yeah.
and so I would go with him to the doctors every 2 weeks until he graduated high school.
Wow.
But it was a blast, and it was challenging for people with Asperger's. They take things literally. They're very OCD to the max, and that was the fun thing with Jonathan was you never knew what was going to happen. But
Yeah.
I'll give you just a couple quick examples of him and
Yeah.
his Asperger's. So one day I come home from work and I had some stuff on a little table, our mail, and I brushed it with my coat, knocked it down, and I go upstairs. I said, "Buddy, can you please pick up all the papers? Daddy's got to get changed." He says, "Okay." He was, you know him. He's always happy. He's always smiling.
Yeah.
And he, with a big smile, he goes about his business. I come down and half the stuff is still on the floor. I'm like, "Yo, bud, come here." I thought Dad said that, well, Daddy, they're not papers, they're magazines.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
just one example of many.
Yeah.
It was sad at times because he couldn't understand a lot of the things that were going on around him.
Yeah.
Like for one example, it breaks my heart every time I tell this story, but we're in a McDonald's playland. He loved to go to the McDonald's with the playland, with the sliding board and everything. He must have been 8 years
Right.
old.
Yeah.
And by this time, I think at that point I had sole custody of him. We had gotten divorced when he was young.
Right.
So anyway, kids are playing around him and they're making fun of him, except he doesn't understand it.
Yeah. You don't even know it.
They were like 14 years old. And I called one of them over. I said, "Listen, pal, you don't have to play with the kid, but don't bother him." Of course, there's no parents on the
Right.
other side, right?
Right.
So it got pretty bad. And, I pulled him over. I said, "Jonathan, we got to go." And he looked me square in the eye and he says, "But Dad, I made two new friends today."
Yeah. Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
It's awful.
And things would happen at school, and I would have to ask him like 10 times what happened. Why did your locker? What happened to your locker? It would take like 3 sessions with a doctor to figure out what really happened.
Yeah.
But the school was fantastic that he went to.
Awesome.
Shout out to the Neshaminy School District; they're awesome.
Awesome.
But I'll never forget one of the most influential people in all this was his, I think, third grade teacher, Mrs. Price. He said, "My son was a math genius. You know that from experience.
Yeah.
When we were stuck in traffic, I'd give him complex algebraic problems. He was 6, and he would solve them in his head.
Yeah.
Like
And I mean this in the best way possible to anybody who's listening to this, but he is literally Rain Man when it comes to that. Like it's unfucking believable.
it's like, hey Jonathan, you have 932 divided by 5 times 16,
Yeah.
and he'd be sitting in the back of the car, and he'd come up with the answer. I'd be sitting there on my phone with a
Yeah.
calculator trying to figure it out. And he'd be right.
Yeah.
The other skill he had, which was great, it was a great party game. Somebody would tell a word to him, and he would tell you the sum of the letters, with A being 1 and Z being 26. So someone would say throne, and he would add them up in his head.
Immediately though.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. So anyway, Mrs. Price calls me up and says, "I hope it's okay. This is what I did. I told the kids that if they have a math problem, to go to Jonathan first before they come to me." And it was one of the most amazing things because
Yeah.
it raised the esteem of him with all his classmates.
Right.
It forced social interaction. between him and his classmates.
Amazing.
And he felt more comfortable because it was something he excelled at. I mean, she always told the story. She said when we finally got to multiplication and complex multiplication, Jonathan was like, "Oh, I've been waiting for this. He'd been doing it."
Yeah, right.
You know, this kid was crying in a bookstore because he was 6, and
Yeah.
he said, "Dad, where's Math 9?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, kid. We're looking. I don't. What are you talking about?" And I figured it out. He had completed 8th grade math. He wanted grade 9. He was 6.
Yeah.
So then we went on to geometry and calculus and algebra, and I would find things like the Pythagorean theorem written on scrap paper in his room. It
Wow.
was, yeah, it was just brilliant.
Yeah. So talk about your struggles of raising a kid with Asperger's. Talk about that. How it was for you.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something which is a little bit different. It's going to get to your answer, but
Yeah.
I've probably read 100, 200 books on this subject. I would like to complete a book with Jonathan about all these stories from both of us writing it together.
Yeah.
The funny stuff from his point of view and then from my point of view, and then
Yeah.
some type of resolution. But it was very challenging. It was very fun, but it was heartbreaking sometimes too.
Yeah.
Um, you had to break down tasks. Like it took us, I don't know, maybe 10 times for him to go into a grocery store and come back with the right items and the right amount of change. Because Asperger's kids will go through the store up and down the aisles until they find bread, and then they'll go back to the beginning and go up and down this thing until they find the milk. So they have no, it's problem solving.
Yeah.
But what I want to reveal is one of the things I learned in the books is Asperger's is hereditary on the father's side.
Right.
So in looking back at some of the struggles that I had, and even my dad,
Yeah.
I know there's a touch of it in both of us.
Yeah.
So my Asperger's manifests itself, I think. I mean, I've never been diagnosed, but
Yeah.
like I can't remember names.
Really.
You know, remember my dad? He couldn't remember Giuseppe's wife and your wife, their names. He
That's right.
confused them
Yeah. Yeah. Always.
always. So shout out to Motown Mike. That's why I couldn't remember your name a lot of times. Mike came up to me one time. God bless him. He said, "Steve, we've met many times, and you still can't remember my name." It's one of the things that manifests itself is I can't. I tried.
Yeah.
I cannot. But I do believe that that's part of the reason why when someone gets something wrong, that's what goes right up me.
Well, I must have Asperger's too because I have both those problems.
There you go.
But no, I see that in that when with you, the people that do things wrong or really disorganized drives you bananas.
That's exactly right, man.
Yeah.
Like I can even relate it to my relationship with my mom. My
Yeah.
mom will say, "Hey, I'll just think of an example. Steven, it's 4:30," and I'll be like, "No, mom, it's 4:28." Look,
Right.
it's 4:28 as a kid.
Yeah.
Now that's got to drive my mom nuts.
Sure it did. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you're raising Jonathan. You're a single dad by the time he is how old? How old?
We split when Jonathan was a baby, but we had joint custody until I want to say third or
Okay.
fourth grade,
Yeah.
and it was challenging, a full time job, and not a stressful one. And but he's great. I mean,
Yeah.
he made it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Let's just say right now that he works in a high tech industry,
Yeah.
defense contractor. He's not allowed to tell me. And
Yeah.
Aspie kids are very rule oriented. You cannot break the rules.
Yeah.
So, Dad, alcohol is a drug, and you shouldn't be drinking alcohol.
Right.
Well, son, your dad needs a beer right now, so he's going to have a beer. But
Right.
so he tell me what he's working on. All I know is it has something to do with shooting down missiles.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah. And he's what? He got a master's degree.
he went to Drexel,
Yeah.
graduated, got a job right out of Drexel, and completed his master's at Rowan
Yeah.
for computer engineering. And kid's the smartest human being I know, but he's also
Um,
the sweetest soul I know on this earth.
yeah. Super sweet kid. I mean, he's a man now, but it's hard to ever not think of him as a kid. But
You're not allowed to curse, so he doesn't curse. He's 27 years old,
yeah.
28 years old.
Yeah.
I've never heard him drop the F bomb. I've never heard him, he'll say shoot or gosh darn. I'm like, buddy, I'm getting mad at you. Curse. It's okay. Curses are just words, by the way. I have nothing against cursing,
Yeah.
but he will not curse. It's just in him, he won't do it.
Yeah. He's just a rule follower, right?
Mhm.
And it's just what he does. And he's also doing well socially too, importantly.
He's involved a whole bunch of groups. He got very lucky. He fell into a place that takes care of their people, has a
Yeah.
mentor for him, and social groups after work. And so he's the Dungeons and Dragons group and the Magic Card group, and I don't know. It's called they're all geeks and nerds, and
Yeah,
he admits that and he loves that title. So,
yeah, it's all right. The geeks and the nerds make the money.
and they're going to rule the world.
Yeah.
Too. We're just on their planet right
Talk to me about trying to navigate relationships with women, being a single dad.
now. Well, funny Jonathan story about that. I guess it was third grade, and I made all the appearances at parents' night. Right, his mom had moved away, so I guess it was fourth grade or whatever. The teachers all knew me,
Yeah.
and I was one of the only fathers there. And one of the teachers says, "Well, wait until you see what Jonathan put on the boy outside project or something." And all the moms who knew me and knew him were out there laughing. I
Yeah.
went in there, and Jonathan's goal for the year was to find dad a new wife.
That's amazing.
It was interesting. You've met several,
Several. Yeah.
yes. You had to have someone who was understanding,
Yeah.
and someone who tried to make me choose them over my son lost real easy, real quick.
Yeah. Every time. Yep.
But for the most part, it was okay. I went through long periods where I really wasn't in a relationship for very long. All of my energy was on him.
Right.
It was challenging, but it was a lot of fun. He's a funny kid too. I mean, he used to come and DJ our poker nights, if you remember.
I do. I do.
He had a good taste in music from Guitar Hero and stuff. He
Yeah.
loved his music and kept track of it. So dating was challenging at times. Because you've got a kid that's home that's 9 or 10 that has Asperger's, you're not leaving them at home on a Saturday or Friday night. You got to make sure you had arrangements.
Your biggest activity, I guess, outside of Jonathan was baseball.
Yes,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I was on two teams for a while,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's and I started playing again when I found an article in the paper that said, "Hey, adult baseball." So I just showed up, and that's where I met some of the guys that you knew and we've known for many years,
Yeah.
and just started playing again.
Talk to me about the importance of that outlet for you.
Like I
It's
said, sports is a huge impact on my life, and that was Sunday morning for games and Sunday afternoon,
yeah.
and then Thursday night practices. I mean, it was the big social event, really.
Yeah.
Go play a game and then basically have a couple of beers at the field or go to lunch or something like that. Thursday night, same thing. Some of my closest friends are guys that I've played ball with.
Yeah.
We had practice today. Saw some guys that I've known for many, many years, still playing ball today.
How do you feel about the guys that give it up because their wives or families tell them that Sunday morning is too much?
Don't want to get anyone mad at me,
No.
but that doesn't. I do not understand that.
Yeah.
I do not understand that. One of the things that I really, from afar, admired about your relationship with Laura was you had your own time,
Yeah.
and you always made the time, and you understood that you needed that time apart to do your own thing. I can't see, and in fairness to Jonathan's mom and relationships I've had, no one's ever forced me into that choice.
Yeah.
I think probably because they know they probably lose.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it, I guess is how I come at it. I don't judge it. I mean,
Yeah.
people have their own different priorities.
Right.
So if you want peace in the home, you don't want to cause trouble. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's the forcing to make a choice that is
Right.
puzzling to me.
Everybody needs to have a little piece of themselves. Relationships are about being individuals that want to be together, not trying to meld you into one person. People that do that don't last, or if they do, it are miserable. It's the
Right.
truth.
I mean, you fall in love with a person. Baseball is part of that person, and
Right.
you're going to try and change that.
Yeah.
Baseball's huge to me.
I would tell men the same thing about their wives. You have to give them their own time, whatever that time is. If you have kids at home, you have to have a time where you're spending time with the kids and your wife is out, and vice versa, right? Because it's a partnership, and yeah, you're both individuals.
I'll take it one step further. You don't want to lose your identity. You don't want to be someone's wife or husband or someone's mom or dad. So part of you is that individual thing, and that's either. I mean, Jonathan's mom played soccer, and she played as an adult, and she was really good. She's a very good athlete. Uh, That's great. I think she still does even now.
Also,
So
yeah,
that's part of who you are. You don't change. You don't want to be known as Jonathan's dad or someone's husband. You're you. You're part of your individuality is playing baseball.
yeah. All right, so catch me up the last 10 years, where you've been, what's been going on. So you have your son, graduates high school, he's going away to college. He's still home, I guess, right?
Yes. Hmm.
But just catch me up. What's going
Okay.
on?
So So at that point, Jonathan's not able to live on his own, so he had to live with me. That's when I had been dating someone long distance for off and on for a very long time, and you know who she is. There's a fantasy football rule named after her.
Yeah.
Can't bring her to the draft because, you know,
Because she's not, I can't pay for to have sex with her or to have her give me a lap dance. Yes.
that's right. That was the rule. You
Right.
cannot bring a woman to the fantasy football draft
Right.
unless those were the conditions, and we weren't going to meet those conditions, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I would have benefited from it, but so,
Okay.
so anyway, no, I'm just kidding. No, but the point was when Steve first started seeing this young lady, he brought her to the first two drafts because she was in town that time and they were still doing a long distance relationship. But she sat there with all of us acting like assholes. And we just were uncomfortable and we're little men, babies, and we made a rule.
By the way, she thought it was hilarious. She
Yeah.
loved it. But in any event, she had three young children. You know me. I am a fixer
Yeah.
and a people pleaser. So she had three young kids in a very bad situation. And eventually I asked her to move up here, 1,600 miles away from where she was. And that happened. So they all moved up into my little house.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this part of me, but I never stopped caring about people.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah, I do know
and even when I probably should, and it's probably in my benefit to do that, I can't. So things were good for a while, and then they were up until they weren't. Problems with the kids, problems with her. I don't want to get too much into it,
that. Yeah. No.
but it was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Nightmare at the end.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the last probably year and a half, 2 years. Remember, I kind of dropped out for a while,
Yep. I do.
and there's nothing worse than dreading going home, pulling up in your driveway and wondering what you're going to find when you get there.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I closed down.
Yeah.
I focused on one thing, work, and trying to survive at home. Let's just say that rule follower that I am never had involvement with the police
Yeah.
up until those couple of years.
Yeah.
Not at my expense, but
Yeah.
she had problems with pain medication and then alcohol, and it just spiraled from there. And the young boy became a man while living with me. This was going for, I guess, around 7 years.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of issues, and that was very rough. That tore me apart.
Yeah.
And eventually, I basically had to evict them.
Yeah.
And being a lawyer, you had to follow the procedures and everything else, and I had to give notice, and eventually I had to go through the whole start the whole eviction process.
How long has that been now since it's been all over?
Well, it's been about 4 years now, three,
4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
So how about the last 4 years? How's that been?
COVID has screwed me up at times, so I'm
Yeah. 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 So it was before COVID though, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been about 5, 6 years, I guess.
Yeah. How's it been the last couple of years?
Again, focused on career. Jonathan getting started.
Yeah.
Had a couple of relationships, nothing really serious or anything.
Yeah.
They tore my house apart when they left.
Yeah.
So I came home, and you've been in my house. Hell, you helped me move in. Just tore things apart. I had to take a couple rooms down to the studs and rebuild them.
Oh, boy.
So it took me a while to get that done. And I wasn't really interested in jumping back in a serious relationship after that yet.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I focused more on work, still on work, and then got the promotion that I did before COVID,
Yeah.
and now I run that department, which is great. And
Yeah. You got your feet under you now, right? I mean, it's sort of, there was a lot of stuff going on in the department. COVID happened, a bunch of other stuff that made it difficult, but you got the procedures going more now, and it's like your department now, right?
yeah, it's funny because I told my boss when I got the promotion, I said, "Give me 6 months, and then we'll talk about how I want to redo it, reshape it." And he agreed. And then 6 months and 4 days after I got the promotion, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so we threw all that out the window. In a department that never worked from home, we had to get 30 people up and running from home and everything else, and it was a nightmare. And then 6 months after COVID happened, our company had a malware attack,
Yeah.
and we lost all our files. We
Yeah.
couldn't even see our files for 6 months.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah.
we had to go through all of that, and the courts have been really clogged with all the COVID stuff. So we're finally now getting to the point where I wanted to be back in March of 20.
All right. What are you looking forward to the next 5, 10 years? What's your plan?
Well, Jonathan is ready to move out right now. I always tell him he's the best roommate I ever had, so including his mom.
Yeah.
So but he's gonna be out on his own. I'd like to settle down with someone and enjoy my life now is going to be a lot less stressful.
Yeah,
One of the people, we have a new person starting as a team leader,
yeah,
and he started last week, and that's
nice,
going to make my life a lot better.
nice.
Yeah. So,
All right, let's talk about some advice you might have for people. First, let's talk about advice that you might have for 18-year-old version of you.
oh man. Um, well, when I was 19, I lost someone real close to me at the start of my college, and I want to tell that 18-year-old to say, you'll get through it. Don't stress it. Don't stress about everything. And that was hard for me to do.
Yeah,
It's still hard for me to do.
yeah,
Is don't stress so much.
yeah. Everything's temporary.
Yes, and you'll find that you waste a lot of time worrying about things that you can't control.
Yeah,
So that's what I would tell myself, definitely.
I spent a lot of my life caring about things that are just worthless.
Yeah,
Uh,
in the long run, they don't matter much. You
right.
know.
How about to new parents, just generally? Any advice to that?
Yes, spend as much time and don't worry about it. I know that babies don't come with a manual. You wish they did, but you're going to be all right, and you're going to be scared. And you'll think about the stories of couples with multiple kids. Like the first one, the kid coughs and you're in the emergency room, right?
Yeah,
Don't worry, they're not as fragile as you think,
right.
and you're going to do just fine. Just love them and make sure they know that they're safe and they're loved, and the rest of it, it'll work out.
How about any advice for parents with someone like your son who had some extra needs?
It's really funny because Jonathan and I went and spoke at a couple of Asperger conventions at the invitation of his doctor.
Yeah,
And I got to tell you, it was one of the most inspiring things to see my son, who was maybe 16 at the time,
yeah,
walk up in front of 200, 300 people, teachers and parents with Asperger's kids, talk about his Asperger's and how it affected him. And he was funny, he was engaging, and I was like impressed. And we actually corresponded with some people from that because then I went up and talked about it from my point of view. And I would tell them, get intervention as fast as you can. Read as much as you can about it. Do what the doctors say and be patient. Being patient is the biggest thing.
yeah. Patients with kids without special needs is important
Oh,
too.
but yes, true.
Especially when you're particularly a
I,
non-patient person.
I remember wanting him to play ball, right?
Yeah,
Wanting him to play baseball.
yeah,
Well, Asperger's kids have really problems with coordination and muscle development. So I literally started having a catch with him with a beach ball, literally, and worked down like basketball, volleyball. Finally, we're going to go to his little league, right? He had a 1 day little league career. That was it.
yeah,
We went there. He was miserable. He couldn't do anything,
yeah,
and he was doing it for me.
yeah,
And I realized that. As another piece of advice for parents. We got into the car. It was miserable for him, me. It was stressful. He got in the car. He looked up at me in his Jonathan way, and he said, "Daddy, do I have to come back here?"
yeah,
And I said, "No, son, you don't."
yeah. It's a big important piece of advice for parents. Don't live through them.
Yeah,
Let them live their life. Be their support. Be encouraging, but don't live your life again through them.
I couldn't agree more. And he's so different than me, and thank God.
Yeah. It's hard though. You want your kids to experience the things that you always wanted to experience, and I get it. But it's just not. It's damaging. It really is.
One of the things I admire about him is he wouldn't have let it happen.
Yeah.
He's strong enough to say, "Dad, that's not me."
Right.
His musical taste is way different. His ideas about things are way different, and I admire him for that.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
How about relationship advice? You have any advice for people getting into a relationship?
Be honest with your expectations and with what you're seeing. Believe what you're seeing. One of the things that I had that problem was I was being gaslit by a lot of things. Trust your instincts,
Yeah.
uh, good and bad. Not I don't mean to just be a downer, but good and bad.
Right.
Trust your instincts, believe what you see, and follow your heart. And you know what? You're not going to have an intimate relationship with anybody unless you're vulnerable. I get that. Just keep your eye on your own heart. Something I had a problem with.
Yeah.
I don't protect myself very well.
How about how about young workers in the current situation?
Oh boy. Um,
What do you
workers,
what do
do
you
they work? I'm not sure. And One of the things that we're having problems with in hiring is people come in with expectations. Okay, I'm going to work this amount of time. I'm going to work this, and you're like, whoa, that's not what I'm used to.
Yeah,
I'm used to work ethic. I'm used to trying hard and people starting jobs and trying to make a good impression.
yeah.
It's not the way anymore. It's about effort, and unfortunately, I think things have changed a lot.
I admire young people because they have more self, self-awareness and self-respect. They're not going to get shit on as easy as we would have.
I agree.
And that's a good thing. You should have a voice. But Jesus Christ, you have to work.
Yes.
Like I hired some people over the past year where they're coming into the job and then literally they're there for 2 days and they're asking to change their schedule. What the fuck?
Yes.
Or they're asking for a raise 3 months in. That that's not the way the world. You don't get a fucking raise 3 months in, bud.
Yep.
You're not running a department in a year. I'm sorry. There's nothing that replaces experience. You might be way smarter than me, but I've been doing this for 20 fucking years. I'm better at you than it. Get over it. I don't know what to tell you.
No.
Sorry.
And the other thing is, it's like, is it my job to do this? Did the attorney ask you to do it? Yes. Then it's your job to do that.
It's your just do it. Yeah. Yeah, it's not my job description. That shit. Oh, Jesus
And
Christ.
I'm talking about someone who's been there for like a couple months,
Yeah,
just
right,
walking up and saying, "I'm not supposed to do this, am I?"
right.
Did someone above you say yes to do it?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
that's our generation's fault though, because we taught our kids generally, to be more assertive, but they're missing the point.
Yeah, I agree with being assertive to a point, like saying
Yeah,
now that we've discovered that everyone can work from home in a limited capacity, then okay, I can understand being insistent on working from home,
right.
but you know, don't ask for everything.
Yeah, right. All right. How about new bosses? Any advice for them?
Well, when I first took the job, I decided I was going to be myself and just stay true to that. Um,
Yeah,
and I took over from someone who was my mentor, but I do things a different way, and don't be afraid to do that a different way, your way. You have to make the job your own, and don't ever accept the answer. Why do we do this? Should never be because that's the way we've always done it.
oh boy.
Hate that.
And that happens in big organizations all
Oh,
the time.
oh my God.
All the time.
And not necessarily in that way. It's like,
Yeah,
but there was one thing, it involved something we were hand delivering as a matter of practice, which causes a lot more steps in this. And I asked why, and the person just said, "Well, that's what we always do." No, we're not. We're going to
yeah,
mail that out. We're not going to get a courier. We're not going to do this. We're going to have it hand delivered.
yeah. All right. How about what do you think your 18-year-old self would think of you?
Oh man, oh that's a good question. Did not think of that one. I think he would be proud in a way, probably annoyed in a way, just because there are times when I wish that I could have been more sought out more challenges.
Got it.
18-year-old me would probably be stunned that I've been in the same place for 30 plus years.
Yeah,
I've had offers, I've had opportunities,
yeah.
but I was risk averse for a long time because I was a single dad
Right.
with a kid with special needs
Yeah,
that I can leave at 4 o'clock to go to his doctor's appointment. Not
yeah.
sure I could do that in a big firm,
Right.
but I never took the chance to jump. And the 18-year-old me would probably wonder why.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made the right choices though. I mean, you have a kid at home that'll probably say the same, you know?
I'm proud of him,
Yeah,
and I don't regret. I don't do regrets.
yeah,
These are the choices I made.
yeah.
I like where I am.
Right,
I love my job.
right.
If I didn't have to deal with lawyers,
Yeah, but I hear that. I hear that. The 18-year-old me wouldn't even conceive of what the 47-year-old me. It wasn't in his mind. I was just wanting to get out of South Philly at the time.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I was I have a story about when I was at 18 when my or 18, 19 years old, my roommate at the time, Frank, and I clip out this house in the paper. And Frank was befuddled because it was like, at the time it was like maybe a $250,000 house. It was a nothing house.
mhm,
And to me
a
it
mansion.
it it was a mansion.
Yeah,
And to him, it was like his dad's starter home,
yeah.
right? And I get it, but so again, so that my point is that he wouldn't even have conceived of it. But I've been risk averse my whole life. my whole life. This is a risk for me that I would have never taken 5 years ago
Mhm.
just to be talking like this and putting it out there.
Yep.
So I get it, I get it. Best advice you ever got?
My dad,
Yeah,
you're only as good as your word.
yeah,
Um, you said you were going to do something. I think I could boil it down to say what you mean what you say, do what you say you're going to do.
yeah.
And that was my dad. My dad was my hero, my biggest influence in my life, and I miss him every day.
Talk about that relationship a little bit.
Oh my goodness. My dad and I were extremely close, and it's hard for me to talk about him without getting a little misty. So forgive me, but one of the great moments was our banquet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to tell that story or not.
No, I mean, I want you to tell it, but
Okay.
we shut down that banquet after that, and I'm kind of glad we did because it was not getting any better.
My dad, and I don't, people always kind of put a sainthood on people when they pass and everything, but my dad was a great man, and I mean that sincerely. We had a banquet. Gosh, it's got to be what 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, at least.
So my dad was going to go. It was at a AOH club right near in Northeast Philly where my parents still lived. And I said, Dad, come on out, because he had met you guys many times, and loved, like I said, loved Laura and loved Giuseppe's wife. They were like tight, thick as thieves. So I said, come on out. So that morning, I get a phone call. My uncle passed, not my real uncle, my fake uncle. I remember being very upset at him for lying to me that he really wasn't my uncle, but it was his best friend.
Yeah,
Died that morning. They were both served in World War II, and he was all broken up. And it happened to be my dad's birthday that day. So I told Dave, I said, listen, I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. And you came up with an idea to give him an award. I don't know if you remember this. The award was congratulations on being older than, and we filled it in with all these things that my dad was older than. And
yeah.
one of them that stands out to me was penicillin. I thought that was
And a
remarkable.
typewriter, I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It was a bunch of stuff that my dad was older than. So Dave made this plaque, and we were going to present it to him at the banquet. So I said, Dad, you don't have to go. But he's like, no, I'm going. So, like, he said he was going to be there. He's going to be there. So we show up, and Dave and I, we each have a microphone. I can see it like it's happening now. We each had a handheld microphone. We were giving out awards for our two teams, and I let you do it because I knew I couldn't.
yeah,
So Dave presents my dad with this award, with this silly plaque, and my dad just starts going off on this story.
yeah. So let me take it from here. So he stands up and he starts talking about both first his friend, his best friend who just passed away, and then his generation and how there was many of them dying every day, and and just about him serving and what the country meant to him and what it meant to him for to lose his friend and how nice this award was for him. And it went on for he was rambling a little bit, right? But it was probably 7 or 8 minutes, and Steve was trying to get him to stop, but everybody, to a man, did not say a fucking word
Nope.
and just let him talk. And then when he was done, they all gave him a standing ovation.
But by the way, since this is just a visual, you can't see us. We both have tears in our eyes right now, both of us. And he started off with talking about Easter, and I'm
Yeah,
like, where the hell? He's lost it, right? And it was because it was I don't know if it was Okinawa or somewhere where they lost some planes. He was on a pocket aircraft carrier. Anyway, I had never heard the story. He had never told me that story before. And the weird part about that is, and there were grown men crying at that thing, and everybody bought him a drink, and my dad was blitzed. When
yeah,
I basically had to carry him up the steps of his house. And the next day, I went over to check on him, and I said, "Mom, how about that thing last night? What Dad did? What Pop did?" He never told my mom.
yeah,
My mom never. He never brought it up again. But that plaque, that stayed on his credenza for years, dude. That
yeah,
that meant a lot to him. That's just the way he was.
yeah. Well, it was a beautiful moment. I mean, there was probably we had a lot of people, 70, 80 people
At
probably.
least, at least.
I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody was going to say a word. Nobody's going to stop from talking.
And I couldn't face anybody. I had to face the corner because I was tearing up the whole time. Um,
Yeah,
and that's what. And he wore a World War II veteran's hat, and cops would stop him and salute him and everything. And
Yeah.
He was just a great guy, just a great man. Biggest influence in my life. And if I want to tell one story to everyone to get something from his experience, first of all, he was so funny all the time. At a golf tournament, Minos was our part of our golf foursome when
Yeah.
we won,
Yeah.
and he talked about that golf tournament and the party afterwards for years. And Minos and Ed and we won not because of me because I suck.
Yeah.
And my dad sank a putt. I asked him, I said, "Why'd you slide?" He goes, "Oh, he's like close to 90. He's going to be a good putter." And he was. He sank up like a 15-foot putt on the first hole, and that was it. He was done for the day. But that made his day, made his
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But we're leaving to leave our little party after the golf tournament, and Dave walks up to me, angry Dave. This is nice Dave. Nice Dave walks up to me, puts his arm around me, and says, "Steve, I like you and everything, but your dad's a lot more fun. Just send him next time."
That's a true story. The lady, I mean, my wife, Giuseppe's wife, loved him. He was just a lot of fun. He was like he was what we had like three or four of them that he was at,
Yeah,
and he was the fucking show, man.
it was.
Yeah.
It was role reversal. I'm like, "Dad, we got to go. I'll bring in the car around." He goes, just a little bit more. I had to drag him out of there. He was still drinking. He was still having a blast. But the one thing I wanted to tell everyone was it was a very sad and dramatic ending. And listen, I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky. I had both my parents for a very long time, and I had adult relationships with them. Not everybody can say
Yeah.
that. I miss him terribly every day. But I got just to give you a little glimpse of what he is, of who he was. I got the call that you never want to get. My mom saying, he's collapsed. Uh, I'm on my way there. We call 911. Long story short, he had a stroke, and I almost got arrested twice because they wouldn't let me in the hospital. So I'm smarter than I look, which is admittedly a low bar. But I went around to the emergency room where the ambulances were coming in, and I basically broke into the emergency room to see him, and got escorted by the security guards to a room. And they came in and said, "Oh, by the way, massive brain bleed. The helicopter's landing in 10 minutes." And I'm like, "What the hell?" So long story short, that guy, after being in ICU for a couple of days, is home and he's walking around with a walker
Yeah.
like 3, 4 days later.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he winks. He goes, "Don't worry about this." He put the walker aside. He takes 5 steps and he takes 5 steps back. He goes, "Don't worry, I'm living to 100. No problem here."
He almost made it.
He did. He did. And it took 5 months more and a whole bunch of other stuff. But he was a fighter, man.
Yeah,
He
he
fought
was.
every day.
All right. First, I guess we need to tell the Iraq story.
Oh, jeez.
We need to tell
All
the
right.
story.
This fits into I can't take when someone's wrong about something.
Yeah.
So we just invaded Iraq. And I did not think it was a good idea. And our friend, Kevin, rest his soul,
Yeah.
was telling me about how the Iraqis took down the towers on 9/11. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
For the record, that was bin Laden in Afghanistan. I had no problems going in after bin Laden. But there were no weapons of mass destruction, and I said as much and said we're going to be there for years, and we're going to have a lot of people killed, both Iraqi and Americans.
And I think Kevin said something like, "Yeah, we're going to make it a parking lot or some shit." Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Some nonsense.
Right. And it just escalated. And most of the times when I'm drinking, I'm fine. But when they get into this, every now and then,
Yeah.
this happens, and I lost it. And I was like, I'm not accepting these statements that you're making as true. And I did not say it nearly as politely as that.
Yeah.
And it got really heated for a
Steve
while.
and Steve was banging on the bar,
I was.
and he had a big red face. And he gets this when he gets really mad, he gets this like Hulk Hogan face.
True.
That really like he's he's gonna body slam you.
Which I could have, but did not do.
No, you didn't do. No, but the bartender Larry, who still asks me where's Iraq at,
Yes.
still to this day.
For years when I went back in the bar, it's like when Cheers and everyone said Norm. Whenever I came in, Larry, Iraq, how you doing? And Steve too, rest his soul,
Yeah,
also did.
yeah, man, it's a tough one too.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Tell me, all right. So I didn't ask you any Angry Dave stories. You got one or two of those?
Oh man, I got lots of Angry Dave stories.
Just one or two, please.
Okay. Let me hold on for 1 second here. Okay. Night game. Stevie Bananas Jr. is pitching, and you're catching. You remember this story?
I do.
All right. So we're crushing the other team. I mean, we're up by 10 runs. and Stevie and Dave are at each other's throats the entire game. And the umpire comes over to me. I don't know if you know this part of the story. The
Yeah.
umpire comes over to me and says, "Steve," I knew the umpire. I don't know who it was, but he walks over to me and says, "Steve, the only thing interesting about this game is watching your pitcher and catcher." So
Yeah.
Dave's catching, Steve's pitching, and it's going on for innings.
Steve, it was like a three. He had like a three hitter. Like
Yes.
he was killing.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
And he kept shaking Dave off. He kept shaking him off. And when your catcher is in a groove with you like that and you're throwing a three hitter, you don't say anything. So finally, Dave said, "Well, what the fuck are you going to do? You only got two pitches." And
So
then, and
the other part of the story is though, I throw down the one, he shakes it off, or something like that. I think I throw down the two, he shakes it off. I throw down the one, he shakes it off. I said, Steve, you only have two fucking pitches. Like, what do you want? What do you want me to fucking do? You're just shaking me off at this
mind you, this is yelling in the middle of the
point.
game.
Yeah.
And then he says, and this is the famous line afterwards. He goes, "Okay, everybody's getting fucking fastballs." That was
Uh,
that's a great memory. And the other thing about Angry Dave, and I did mention this, and one of the things that I suffer from is when someone that I care about gets mad, then I get mad with them. I'm empathic, and it's not just that I can sense what other people are feeling. It's like I feel it too.
yeah.
So when Dave gets mad,
Yeah.
like I get mad because that's just the way I am. But Angry Dave has this neat little trick, and it took me a long time to figure this fucking thing out. So Angry Dave gets mad, and then he's done,
Yeah.
and he's not mad anymore. But I'm still mad.
Yeah. I popped the balloon. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I'm not that way when I get mad on my own, but
Yeah.
when I'm mad for somebody else, it's like you screwed with my friend. I mean, he has said to me, Dave, you said to me, you know this. That guy is dead to me. Fuck him. I don't want to see him again. He's dead to me. Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
And then, 2 weeks later, we're out at a bar.
Yeah.
And I'm still mad because, Dave told me all the reasons why he's mad. I'm like, yes, I'm mad now too. But Angry Dave, it's done.
Whiskey makes a lot of things better for me. I'm not gonna lie about that. Laura talked about this a little bit in her podcast about how you just need to ignore me for 5 minutes.
It's true. It's you wait until the storm passes, and then there's much calmer scenes. It's very true. It took me a while to figure that out, but
All right. I need a drunk or high story where you embarrass yourself.
oh Jesus, wow, not high. Never. I don't smoke. Don't imbibe. Don't judge who does. But
Yeah.
okay. So one of the things in college was that I would never get sick, and all my fraternity brothers would get drunk and get sick, and they would challenge me. So they tag teamed me. They went over and over drinking with me, and I ended up. They carried me home, and I don't remember anything from that night. But they said I was hysterical. I just don't remember any. I got sick that night. They were very proud because it took them 3 years to finally do it.
How about a pee, puke, or fart story?
Oh God.
Pee, puke, or fart.
Ah. Oh, can I go diarrhea story instead?
You can go shit story first, and then I need a pee, puke, or fart
Oh
story.
man. I don't really have one for pee puke.
All right. Well, give me the diarrhea story.
Okay. At work. Dude,
Ha.
dude, explosive diarrhea. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm in the stall, in the handicap stall at work,
Yeah.
and there's no coming back from this. It's destroyed. Didn't quite make it. Came close, didn't quite make it, but I'm in the stall. And
Yeah.
now what do I do? So I had a friend, female, who went out and bought me underwear.
You told somebody?
I did. I couldn't do anything. I'm at work. I can't wear pants or underwear. She bought me underwear and pants and brought it to me.
You lost the pants too.
Oh, the pants were gone. Dude. Explosive means explosive, dude. It was bad. It was a bad story.
Well, what was this? Why did you have the shits like that?
I was not feeling well. Didn't realize I must have had a stomach bug or something.
Uh huh.
But something I ate, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was
72
like I started,
whiskeys.
well, no, I was at work, dude.
All right.
And I was like, all right, I feel bad. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and oh no, I gotta get there in a hurry. Just as I'm breaking the door of the stall, boom! It just exploded. It was bad. God bless her though. She's a good friend, dude,
Uh,
to do that for me.
all right. If you don't have a pee or fart story, I'm going to tell this story. One time we were at a baseball practice and we're inside and there's these nets, like the nets for the,
The batting cages.
batting cage nets. And Steve's coming out of the batting cage and gets on the fucking net, and he looks like a fucking flounder in a net. I mean, it's fucking it was ridiculous, and he can't get out. He can't get out, and he fucking bites it. And there's 10 of us standing there watching him, fucking dying, and he's on his face. And Tom Coletti looks over to me and Johnson Link, and he goes, "Can we laugh yet? Is he okay? Are we allowed to laugh? Is he okay?" And Steve gets up and we start fucking dying. I mean, crying. And he runs and punches Tommy. Punches Tommy.
Once I caught him, he said,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What did he say to you? He said you look like a fucking beached whale or some shit.
yes. But I did. I mean, I must have looked like a tuna on the greatest catch.
All right. How about, do you ever catch anyone or get caught having sex?
This is a story. It came close. I was just married, and I was living with shout out to Greg. Lived with him for years,
Yeah.
and we were living there, saving money to buy a house. We just gotten married,
Yeah.
and he was in another bedroom, going at it, and the bed was close to the electrical outlet. Well, needless to say, sparks flew, freaking smoke and fire, the whole works, and blow a fuse.
Yeah.
Right, and he's like running in. He's like, "What's going on?" Just put it this way: my name was Sparky there for a while.
That's good. That's good. All right. My 20 questions.
Okay,
You ready?
I'm ready.
What makes you angry?
Stupidity and inaccuracy. It just goes right up me.
How about what makes you happy?
My son,
Yeah.
my mom, my family, my son, definitely.
What makes you proud?
Same answer, except a little bit different. I am proud of who he turned into. I mean,
Yeah.
someone in our family said, "Why is he going to Drexel? You're just a waste of money. He's never going to graduate."
Oh, really?
Yes,
Somebody said that?
yes,
To that kid?
to me
Oh, fuck him.
about that, about Jonathan,
Fuck
and
him or
said
her.
that was, he's never going to graduate. You're just wasting your money.
Oh,
And yeah, I'm proud of where he is.
yeah.
I mean, the kid's got a top secret clearance. He's got a master's degree, and
Yeah.
he's got a job for defense industry for the last 4 years. He's okay. He's
Yeah.
going to be good.
I wish I can teach him to be a fucking stone cold asshole like I am.
Uh, I tried.
Yeah.
It's got no meaning. One of the things we had to do for the doctor, so we had tasks every week. We had homework,
Yeah.
was to make him upset and make him say, "Stop doing what you're doing to make me upset."
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was doing everything I could. I was bothering him. I was like touching him. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was cursing at him. He
Yeah.
would not tell me to stop. I said, "Jonathan, are you angry?" Because he didn't want people to take advantage of him.
Yeah.
He's got to stand up for himself, right?
Right.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't get him mad. I've never seen the guy mad in his life.
It's amazing.
It is.
If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? Anything?
I think that the relationship that we talked about earlier, I would have ended that a lot sooner.
Yeah.
And mind you, like I said, I don't stop caring about people.
Right.
I still love her
Of
in
course.
a way.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent a lot together. I would have done that sooner because it would have been better for everyone.
Kat, I say this to people all the time. There's people in your life, and particularly when you're dealing with family, that you love and you care for, but it's not good for you to have them close and in your life.
Yes.
That part of that, right? So you have to meet them where you can meet them, and you have to push people out that are not moving you forward. And it's okay to say that you still love them and you want the best for them and you help them the way you can and you have the relationship the way you can.
Like, I'll do anything to try and keep, fix her and everything and keep people
Yeah,
happy. But what I did was I hurt everybody in the end, and it took me a long time to realize that.
yeah,
I mean, she stole money from my kid's college fund.
yeah,
Okay, and I'm fucking still dealing with that. Like, just I
yeah.
tried to deal with it as much as I could
Right.
because I loved her,
Yeah,
and I tried to understand.
yeah. If there's one thing you can change in the world, what would that be?
I wish everyone would just take a moment before they do something and think about the other person. Just a little bit.
Yeah,
Just people react so self-interestedly most of the time. I really would like people to take a breath and think about the consequences of all the things they're going to say or do, especially say, in this age with the internet where you have complete anonymity and you're saying things that could really hurt someone. Just take a pause.
I can benefit from that. Are you talking to me directly?
No, I was
Okay.
looking at that bottle over there,
Mm.
but
Okay.
you might have been caught up in the air.
What is most important to you?
It's sounding redundant, but
Yeah.
my son is, and I just want I want to be known as someone that gives a damn, that cares.
Yeah.
That's
How about your everyday struggle?
I have a stressful job, and my everyday struggle is to try and prioritize and get done the things that are most stressful to me, because I tend to put them off sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's something that I really do struggle with. I'll get to them, but if there's something that's easier that I can do off my checklist, I'll do that first.
Yeah. It's easy to do.
Yeah, I should just address it because it never gets better with age.
One of the pieces of advice that I got early in my legal career was to, to make sure you get that thing done because that file that you sit on the side soon becomes furniture.
Yes,
And it's easy for that to happen.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it doesn't get better,
Right.
and it doesn't get easier. So just do it. I still struggle with that.
What is your best quality?
I'm loyal. I mean, and I'll do anything. Like there's people in my life that I would definitely uh, lay down in front of a truck for,
Yeah.
or their kids. I think that's it. I'm very loyal. If you get in, then you're in.
What is your worst quality? Sorry.
Stubborn, I guess. And yeah, if I hold a view, then I hold that view, and you can convince me otherwise, but it's going to take a little effort. Um, and I'll battle you, but in the end, I do give in. Or I'll change my mind, I should say. But I am stubborn, definitely.
Your dumbest mistake you ever made?
Um, I wish I would take things less with less anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, there's some things that make me anxious,
Yeah.
and some of it is because of what happened to me in high school, and other times where I felt betrayed.
Right.
When little things happen, like people get invited to a poker game but I don't, for
Yeah. Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
or people go out for coffee and walk right past you but don't invite you to go to coffee. It's probably because they know I don't like coffee, but still, there's that anxiousness, the anxiety. It's like
Yeah.
I wish I could change that. I really do, and I know it's a flaw,
Yeah.
one of many, but I wish I could change that.
What is your best mistake? Something you thought that was terrible when it happened, but turned out to be great.
This is gonna sound awful. In some ways, getting separated when I did, I could see where things were going,
Right.
and it was my decision. And to a certain extent, I wish I had done things differently, but I knew that was the way to go.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. If you could be the other gender, if you could be a female for one day, what would you do with that day?
Dude, I would take notes of everything that the guys say or do that is like stupid or wrong or whatever, so I could learn when I get back. Because I believe this is I know I'm in a minority here.
Yeah.
I believe women are actually stronger. I think that women are actually better leaders in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and I would take fucking notes
Yeah.
and study them.
Well, I think men are really stronger.
I
I,
do,
I do.
absolutely.
I think women in the workforce that get messed up are women that try to be more like men instead of being more like themselves.
You know what? There's a dynamic here that I just can't understand.
Yeah.
Women attorneys treat their staffs like crap. I don't understand why that is.
I've seen that, but really good ones don't.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the staff is a complete. Please don't assign a female attorney to me. I want to work with men.
And I want to defend them because it's a male dominated world and they're trying to be like men, I think. And it's the wrong thing to do because the benefit of being a female is that you're mentally tougher. They are.
Without a doubt, without a
Yeah.
doubt, and they don't get caught up in some of the idiotic bullshit that we do.
Yeah, like the Rams, the two Rams going at it,
Yes, yes.
which is something that I get caught up in.
No, no, not at all. Prove you're the toughest guy in the room. And so the thing is, most of the time you are.
I'll
So,
cut it out. What would you teach a parrot to say if you owned one?
oh man, uh, welcome home, bastard. Every time, every day. I think that'd be pretty funny.
What type of music do you hate?
I guess really strong rap. I like softer rap, but I like everything. I like some country music, and it drives my friends crazy.
So do you like heavy metal or stuff like that at all?
Some,
Okay.
but if it gets too heavy, well, Jonathan is a headbanger. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know
I
that.
don't know where the hell that came from, but it did. He loves heavy metal. Some of that stuff just like screaming and guitars that don't seem to be playing music.
So is that the same thing with rap? It's just too like
Yeah,
hardcore.
yeah. I mean, not to sound like an old shoe, but if I can't hear the music and I can't hear the words, then what's the fucking point?
Right. I get it. Yeah, I don't like that super heavy shit either. What annoys you the most about other people?
One of the things that a friend once told me is that ignorance and arrogance put together is one of the worst things in the world.
Yeah.
So someone who doesn't know what they're really doing, but is arrogant about what they're doing, that just kills me. I can't stand that.
If you were ever arrested, what would your friends and family think happened?
Maybe a DUI, but I don't drink that much. For the DUI part, I lost two people in my life to drunk drivers, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Um,
So if I were to answer the question for you, it would probably be you got some kind of altercation, even if it was maybe with a bull, like you got on your high horse and somebody punched you in the face.
oh, that's how you know that happened. It may have happened. No, it's what you talked about before. It's like
Yeah,
I have my courage and my conviction that I stand and say
yeah,
what I think. But yeah, I could piss people off.
yeah. Even like a police officer or something like that. Like if you really saw somebody doing something that you didn't think was good, you know what I mean? That was
Yes.
wrong, that was illegal.
Yeah, there's that morality that yes, I could see myself getting up in the face on a cop that doesn't arrest someone. I think it should be arrested, and I probably need to go away from disorderly conduct or something.
All right. You have any arch nemesis?
Okay, so originally I would think that it was someone in work who, if I said up, that person said down, and we had to work together.
Yeah,
And that was, and you know who I'm speaking of, and you know that it's been driving me crazy for many years.
yeah,
But I'm going to go with Pepper, and the reason I am is because that's the person who I had to evict from my house because stealing money from my kid's college fund is about as bad as you can get, especially when I would have given the money anyway.
yeah,
And it's the nemesis is because I loved her so much and hated so much what she did that it fried my brain.
yeah,
I couldn't take that,
yeah,
and that's why I was in the holding pattern for a couple of years.
yeah,
And you so wisely pointed it out to me while it was happening.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would have to go with her because
Okay.
even today, if she walked up and said, "I'm in trouble,"
Yeah.
I know you're going to punch me for this.
No,
I'm in trouble. I would help her.
Steve, I wouldn't care if you helped her. I would care if you let her back in your life.
Okay, yeah, well
Does that
that's
make
fair.
sense?
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
because you can't ever go down that road
No,
again,
no,
right?
no, no, no.
If you could be the best at any one thing, what would it be?
Poker player.
Poker player?
Poker player. Yeah. I love playing poker. You know that.
Yeah,
I
you're
would,
pretty good at it.
yeah, I would quit my job and play poker for a living and just travel around.
If there is a God and you get to the pearly gates, what do you want God to say to you?
That you're true to yourself. Good job with the kid. Good job with being a loyal friend. And let's knock a few back.
What do you want people to remember you for when it's all over?
I want people to remember me as someone that if they ask for something, I was there every chance I could, and that I would help you bury the body, and I would definitely do anything I could for anybody.
All right, you got anything else, buddy?
No, man, it's been a wild time being your friend, and it's been interesting. I remember when you and I were sitting in my car
Yeah,
right after you joined, and it was like, we're both lawyers, we both thought the same things, even though I guess we're like what 11 years apart,
yeah,
and I was like, I see a lot of things in you in me, like
yeah,
some of the same
yeah,
faults,
yeah.
but
Like,
it's been a quite a ride.
yeah, man, I love you.
I love you too, buddy.
You know how much I love you. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for wanting to do it.
Absolutely.
And until next time, I'm out.
All right, buddy.
Peace.